Coming to you from Los Flores, Guatemala on our epic road trip that we have. Well, this is day 9. I'm splitting this up into mini videos because it's just too much content for a single video. So this is day 9. We came from Colorado to Georgia to Destin to New Orleans to Laredo to Monterey to, oh, where's that other one? Veracruz, and then Villahermosa, Tabasco, where we ended up doing an extra pit stop in Los Flores, Guatemala, which you can see is absolutely stunning. The reason why we did that is we have a very fluid drive schedule. We're very familiar with Central America and things not always going to plan, so we're keeping it very fluid. We did an extra stop, which you can see. This is absolutely amazing, and I'll show you. We'll do a voiceover, and I want to show you all the lighting from last night, and just everything was just so beautiful. And it was such a nice pit stop for my dogs, that made super best friends. They've gotten to play on the beach, go into the water. So this is just a freshwater lake behind me. We're staying at a place called the Los Gringo, and it's just, this place is absolutely amazing. And it was such a nice, well, it was kind of a treat after we got delayed. We were supposed to make it to Rio Dulce, which is an additional 4 hours for us today, but just we had some delays at the border and just wanted to chat about that a little bit. So we crossed the border. So we're coming down and we're ultimately going to Roatan, Honduras. So our crossings are a little bit different than like someone on a road trip or just being a tourist. You probably would have gone through a different border in Guatemala. We went through El Ceiba, and it took us about 3 hours, which we knew we had to get up early, and we were just going to play it by ear, just see how things went. So we had a couple, actually really only one issue yesterday, and some of it was kind of user error. I know about how important entry and exit stamps are. I've talked about how much I was fined in Honduras over immigration, and so I know better. And for anyone tuning in, I am a US citizen, but a longtime Honduran resident that is driving 2 dogs and a car. I was about to say cats, not cats, they're gonna fly. Our cat is gonna fly. And a vehicle, we're importing a US made vehicle into Roatan, Honduras. And there's a whole nother video series on why all of that is, well, why we did all of the things that we're doing, which, well, it makes sense if you watch the videos. But so we crossed from El Ceiba, and it was, most of Mexico was very busy, very, very, very similar to the United States driving, just very comparable, big cities, lots of people, decent bit of traffic, but not too many slowdowns, some construction, the normal stuff that you see everywhere. The Guatemalan border, it was a very small border. Most people cross at the other border on the other side of the country, but since we are going to Honduras and going through San Pedro and ultimately to La Ceiba, where we're going to ship the car and we're going to take a ferry over to Roatan, we just took a less traveled border crossing, and it took about 3 hours. We were the only people that were bringing in a car from the United States with 2 dogs. It was a very busy, like very locally busy. So a lot of people with, Guatemala and Mexican passports, or, a lot of cross traffic, but it was very local cross traffic. We were the only ones that were from far away and going far away. It took about 3 hours. So the first thing we did was go right into the border, where the Mexico side and the Guatemalan side, and it's like, go right to Guatemala. It's like, okay, that'll be easy. So we went right to Guatemala, and we started filling out our paperwork to go into Guatemala, filling out all the physical paperwork. That is very standard, or historically very standard for the last 15 years since I've been doing it. It's all the hand paper copies. Do not lose any of those copies, for the love of God. Don't lose anything, and make sure you get all of the proper stamps. After we got our entry stamp, just the first one, we also then had to go back to the Mexico side to get the exit for Mexico for the vehicle and for us. And I made a mistake. When we entered Mexico, I did not get the physical stamp because we had an online one, and I do know better on this one. I was just like, oh, maybe they're like Europe and you don't always get the physical stamp, it's just all online. Well, no, I think it works if you go back up to the United States, that's fine. But if you're going south and going through Guatemala, you gotta play by the Central American rules, which I know, and it just didn't occur to me. So We had a little bit of a delay. Well, it was about an hour delay and a $45 fine per person, which quite honestly isn't that bad. Let's just add it to the amount of fines I've had with immigration the last, I don't know, 6 months, and it's a drop in the bucket. And everyone was so kind, and that's what, you know, even though we had a 3-hour delay, we had a lot of it was a lot of stop and go and a lot of just not efficient at all. But we knew all of that going in. And I think the biggest thing or biggest difference I see from, well, being an American and just living in Central America is the patience, or I know I always have to work on my patience. And we even have a bracelet in my house with our kids. So whenever someone needs patience, we give it to them so they get a superpower. So if you want to use that theory and put on a patience bracelet, it's great to do that at any border really, but especially this border. So I digress on the patience, and kindness goes a long way, especially with me stumbling through my Spanish because, well, quite honestly, I don't even know what the words are in English either. So definitely not going to be able to say them in Spanish or English. So I'm just like, I don't know what to do other than I'm like, look, I've got a piece of paper, this is what I need. And that's not always accurate because it varies from day to day. However, back to the border crossing, so we did get the exit stamp, and then we also had to get the car exit stamp, so we had to bring the car back from Guatemala into Mexico, which created a whole nother thing because they wanted to then enter the car into Mexico. It's like, no, we just need photos for Mexico. And then so we had to turn a little bit, which was just a little confusing. It would have been very, very difficult if no one in your party spoke Spanish. It would have been a nightmare because it was very minimal English. So if you are going to cross that border, it's going to make your life much, much easier, even with Google Translate, much easier if someone does speak Spanish in your vehicle. Otherwise, our 3 hours would have been like 6, and we might have even had to turn around and do a whole thing. But anyway, so we have to circle back a couple times. We get back into Guatemala, and that's when we had to do more. We had to import, and we were very lucky because as Honduran residents, that's part of the Central America 4. So they're in a trade agreement, so that helped a lot. If you're not a resident, I don't know if it's going to go that smooth. My husband didn't have his card on him, but I was able to, I just told them I was a resident, and I don't even think they looked at my card, if I'm going to be honest with you, but they had our passports, all the car title registration, all the copies, and we ended up just with all the back and forth, and we were the only ones there, so everybody had all the time in the world to hang out with us. We ended up paying the next person a commission, which, you know, you do have the fees for the dogs and the car and for us, and then you have to go find a bank and pay it, which would have just probably added another hour. So there's someone so conveniently set up right there that'll do all of those things for you. They'll come up with a price, might or might not be the same price that I paid, I cannot say, but they take pesos, USD, any type of cash. I even asked if they would take lempiras because I was like, I have lempiras. Anyway, I digress again. So it did take a while, and I'd say patience is going to be your best friend at that border crossing. Everyone was so kind and friendly, which made it so much easier. It just took us a little bit longer than we were expecting, so we ended up staying in Los Flores in Guatemala, which is about 4 hours north-ish from El Rio Dulce, which is where we're going now. So please join me for the next part of this adventure.